the project.
Possible massive military cuts on the horizon have local leaders sending a strong message to Washington, D.C. tonight. Clarksville leaders are worried $500 billion in possible Defense Department cuts could have a negative impact on Fort Campbell. Here's News Channel 5's Scott Arnold with new information on what Clarksville leaders are up to.
And Roy, most likely Thursday night, the Clarksville City Council will pass a resolution that says they want the federal government to stop a massive round of military cuts from hurting Tennessee's largest employer. Add the 30,000 active duty soldiers and 58,000 family members connected to them. It's easy to understand Fort Campbell makes up the heart and soul of Clarksville. It's also easy to understand why $468 billion in cuts already announced by the president and another $500 billion possibly over the next 10 years have local leaders concerned about just how much the feds will cut the military's budget.
Fort Campbell is the largest employer in Tennessee. Their payroll is several $billion every year.
Councilman Nick Steward and other leaders are taking the unusual step of supporting a federal piece of legislation called the Down Payment to Protect National Security Act. To some in Tennessee's congressional delegation, it's
a way to achieve real savings without hollowing out our military or forcing massive layoffs of our troops.
We ask you to stand with us in support of H.R. 3662.
The bill would prevent across-the-board military cuts. Instead, the federal workforce would be cut by 10%. This is all happening because last year, Congress couldn't come up with a plan to cut more than $1 trillion from the federal budget. Because of that, a process called sequestration, $1.2 trillion in across-the-board cuts are expected to happen in 2013 and last for 10 years.
Over 1,000 days now, the Senate hasn't passed budget, and so now we're looking at sequestration in order to balance some of the spending that Congress has been doing over the past few years.
And so again, with sequestration, $1.2 trillion of automatic spending cuts will happen over 10 years, mandated by the Budget Control Act. About half of those cuts, $500 billion, would be in defense, with about $55 billion set to take effect in January. That is, unless Congress acts to prevent them. Many members of Congress already oppose those automatic cuts, but so far, lawmakers have been able to reach any sort of deal to stop them. Rory?
Scott, thanks. In the meantime, House Republicans have passed a one-year delay in defense cuts. Over in the Senate, Democrats are still working on their own proposal.